holiday this week. I love it, all the holidays we've been having. I'm always good for one more holiday. We're honoring the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King this weekend, are we not? Yes. Whose whole life was dedicated to freeing consciousness from fear and separation thinking. That's where racism comes from, fear and separation thinking. And while I'm saddened that racism seems to be fashionable again, it's simply the fear response from a mind that is split, a split mind. A split mind is a mind that sees others as other than, and judges and gets into fear and comparison with anyone different, race, color, creed, social status. And the split mind is best described, many of you have heard this woman, her name is Jill Bolte Taylor, and she's a Harvard-trained brain scientist. And remember the story where she had a stroke? And through the process of having a stroke, she kept moving from the left brain to the right brain and experiencing with each side of the brain the difference in perception from each side of the brain. Because in one side, she was experiencing the euphoria, the reunion with the divine. And everything was fine, and nothing mattered that she had a stroke. She was fine. And then she would move to the other side of the brain, and she would be into fear. Separation thinking again. Now they call it the left and right brain, but I'm one of these that always get confused. Which one is the left brain? Which one is the right brain? My intellect, So I usually go head and heart rather than left and right brain. And if that doesn't work for you, we could talk about the difference between, in the story, the metaphysical story of the fall in consciousness, where we fell from the tree of life into the tree of knowledge of good and evil. For the tree of life was when we were living at one time in our union with God and the awareness of all that is all. And then we fell in consciousness onto this plane of duality, where we have the knowledge of good and evil, meaning the split mind of opposites, of differences, of separateness, and out came the fear. And Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King came to bring us back to that tree of life. He said, I've been to the mountain. He climbed to the top of the tree and looked out. The consciousness of union, of oneness, above the fear and separation, of dualistic thinking of the lower planes of reality. And so the best way to honor Martin Luther King this weekend is to free our minds from any fear or separation thinking. I love when he said, and maybe you'd like to repeat it with me after I say it, I've decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. Should we say that together? I've decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. Wow, what a wonderful statement. Because hate is always about fear, seeing others as other. And we get triggered and go into our default fear drama alarm. We have these default fear dramas, and they set off alarms in us all the time. We're kind of like car alarms. You know, I went to the credit union one day, and I forgot my credit union, the deposit slip. And you know, some places are really fussy. You have to have everything filled out. And I realized I'd forgotten it, so I was sort of getting half in the car and half out, as usual, not knowing if I was coming or going. Very indecisive. Should I come back another time or go? Anyway, all of a sudden my car alarm started to go off. Beep, beep, beep. You know how it goes really loud and and everybody's looking at you for miles around. Beep, beep, beep. And I couldn't get the thing off. I tried everything. I even reached in the glove compartment and tried to read the manual, of course, but it's going beep, beep, beep. It's kind of hard to concentrate. And then the lady from the credit union came out to help me because she could hear the beep, beep, beep. Couldn't get the darn thing off. Finally, I called Michael. Why I waited till the last minute to do that, I don't know. And he said, well, you probably got out of the car too fast. He knows how I am. And left it in park. He said, use the key to unlock it. You're probably not in park. And sure enough, I didn't have the car in park, and I used the key and it went off. But I'd love to compare that to our human alarms that go off when we get into conflicted thinking of the split mind that goes back and forth. And we're triggered by all the little fear dramas going on all over the world. And we love to get into the drama of them. Metaphysically, cars and dreams represent us. You know, if you were a car, what kind of car would you be? Isn't that a fun one? And does your car have a car alarm? Like a car, we have an alarm. And that split mind goes into insanity. The Course in Miracles says we're all insane. We really are insane when we go into our little insane fear dramas. Beep, 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 beep. You know, and we can't seem to shut them off. There's no manual for a fear alarm, is there? Anyone like me, I woke up one night last week in the middle of the night. That's when they go off, the fear alarms. Muriel was sharing that her smoke alarm went off in the middle of the night this morning, but my fear alarms go off in the middle of the night. And I was thinking about something I had to do that day, and my fear alarm went off, and I blew it all out of proportion, made a mountain out of a molehill, and was up half the night in my fear alarm going beep, 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 you know, this is going to happen, and that's going to happen, blah, 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 blah. And then the next morning I got up and I was like, what was that about? I was on the other side of my brain again, where everything was fine. I'm in union with God, what could go wrong? And everything did go fine. You see how we go into that split mind, and we go off on our tangents, when all we have to do is say a unity prayer, affirm the presence, and the power of the presence moving in through us. Everything's fine. So what do we do when we fall into that insanity of fear? What do? We all do it. Excuse me. I love in Galatians 2:21, one of my favorite scriptures, to show that there is a sense of humor in the Bible if you look for it. It says, don't frustrate the grace of God. Don't frustrate the grace of God. Do you ever hear frustrate the grace of God? You know how we do it? We do it when we struggle and have so much effort on doing things. We do it when we try to control or resist something. We do it when we start projecting our stuff on others. We frustrate the grace of God. How can Spirit move across the waters of our consciousness when we're struggling, controlling, manipulating, trying to fix everything? So what can we do? Well, we don't give power to the fear. We don't give power to the dramas that are going on. That's why I quit watching the news. I refuse to give energy to the negativity right now. It only gives it energy. You know the golden key, don't focus on the problem, focus on the divine presence, and the problem seems to resolve itself. Focus on what you want to have increase. So through prayer and meditation, would you repeat with me, in union, Spirit moves across the waters of my consciousness. Together, in union, Spirit moves across the waters of my consciousness and moves me through this. Together, and moves me through this. Martin Luther King was threatened every day of his life. He knew he was going to die. He knew he would be assassinated eventually. He had death threats every day. But Spirit, he allowed Spirit to keep moving through his consciousness, to release the fear, and keep doing what he was here to do for however long. He surrendered to that for however long he would be here. And to understand that, we have to go back to the beginning of Scripture in the book of Genesis, to the creation of the world, where it says, in the beginning, God created waters, and Spirit moves across the waters. Freely, no resistance, nothing to frustrate the grace of God. Everything's just moved. Spirit is moving across the waters freely. No resistance, no frustration. And the water, the word water metaphysically has many meanings. That's why it can get a little confusing. In the story of Noah and the flood, water is cleansing. When Spirit moves through your consciousness, it cleanses it. In the esoteric realm, water is the feeling nature. And Spirit definitely has to move through our feeling nature to free us from any of the negativity or the fears that go through our feeling nature. But in the creation story, water represents consciousness, and Spirit is freely moving through our consciousness to create our world. And the meaning of Spirit, Charles Fillmore in the Revealing Word said, God as the moving force in the universe. So that moving force is constantly trying to move through you, moving you to your highest good. That's why people get so afraid of God's will. There's not a man in the sky that has anything less than good for you. God is not a man in the sky, but your inner higher self, always wanting to move you up to more, to greatness, to your good. So this spirit moves across our feeling nature, cleansing and releasing the fear and separation, restoring the peace of mind, to comfort, to strength, to love, to guidance. There are those who think that the greatest fear is fear of the unknown. But I think it was Eric Butterworth who said, no, it's fear of the known, because we hold on to past memories. And even though our past experiences may be often the best teachers, when we hold on to those past experiences, they can trigger those fear alarms in the present. And we see something, immediately, beep, 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 the fear goes off. Because we have this memory, well, that was a bad experience before, it's going to happen again. Would you repeat with me? My past has no presence here. Together? My past has no presence here. I allow spirit to move across the waters of my past. Together? I allow spirit to move across the waters of my past. Back to the garden, which is the garden of the divine presence. And then we have to pull the weeds in our consciousness that set off those alarms. So in the creation story, you have above the firmament and below the firmament. That's split mind. Above the firmament is euphoria, oneness. And below is that dualistic thinking, the good and evil separation thinking, where the fear alarms, beep, 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 are constantly going off. As soon as we have a thought from the higher realms, a divine idea, a desire to express, then the lower realm fear alarm goes off. And if the desire or the idea is, I'm going to get a job, the fear alarm goes off and says, oh, there aren't any jobs. Are you your age? Are you kidding? There's nothing out there for you. You're not experienced. You have a thought of abundance and prosperity. And the lower realms of the split mind sees only lack. You have the idea of a relationship, and your past memories tell you, oh, look what happened in the past. That could happen again. Beep, 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 beep. Those fear alarms keep going off. So through prayer, through meditation, we allow spirit to move across our mind, lifting us back up to the tree of life, to the higher realms of oneness, of union. The Course in Miracles explains spirit as the will of God moving in the universe, God's will, which is constantly pulling us up to a higher level, to a higher consciousness. And it has to move across our split mind, which is always resisting that will. No, I don't want to, I'm afraid. Where that higher will keeps trying to pull us up. We frustrate the grace of God. Where that will is trying to lift us up, and we're fighting and screaming every inch of the way. Well, in 2020, I have a feeling that there will be an acceleration of the movement of the higher will pulling us. Come on, people, let's go up, let's go up. And we can choose either to resist or to embrace it and to allow the lifting to our destiny, which is our greatness. And it's so important not to frustrate the grace of God by resisting, by controlling, by the effort, the struggle, the fear, the beep, 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 beep. Allow spirit to move across your personal consciousness and collectively pray it in. We call forth the moving spirit of spirit to move across the consciousness of this country, this world, this planet. And then we surrender and trust that that higher will is taking us, no matter what it looks like, is taking us where we need to be. I know I've shared with you before when I heard the voice. The thought that God holds of us is so much greater than the thought we hold of ourselves. And that's that pull that pull, always pulling us higher. If we don't frustrate the grace of God, doesn't that drive you crazy? If we don't frustrate the grace of God by getting in the way, don't we get in the way all the time? So what do we do with that fear when it comes on? Like those alarms that go off at night, it's almost like you can't control it. But we don't have to give power to it. Sometimes I say, okay, I'm feeling fear right now, that's all. But this fear has no power over me. Let's say that together. I feel fear right now. Together. I feel fear right now. But this fear has no power over me. Together. This fear has no power over me. And then call forth the Spirit to move through the situation, to move through you, to lift you up. You know, I lived in Arizona off and on a number of times. I love the Navajo philosophy. They have such a wonderful spiritual practices. And they have a great way of dealing with the pain and fears that people go through. They're kind of like me, where I always tell TK, we allow each other a 5-minute wine in the office. You know, I've told you that before. And then we have to let it go. And so what the Navajo do is they stand in a circle around the one who's experiencing a problem, and they let them whine or talk about it 3 times. Okay, 1, okay, say it again, okay, again. And then the 4th time they say, now put it down. Put it down. Where are you in that circle? Still looking at the fear, still struggling? Or have you put it down and let the Spirit lift you up? That's what surrender is. Putting it down. Stop frustrating the grace of God and allow Spirit to lift you back up. Martin Luther King trusted that racism would end someday. And he trusted that death was not the end of life. I'd like to share his final inspiring words, and I wish I had his voice. I don't, but I'll share his words. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop, and I don't mind. Like anybody, I'd like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. Hear that? God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain, and I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. What one man could not do alone, collectively we can do together. When Jesus said, these things that I do, you can do also and more, I think that's what He meant. That one person may not be able to do it, but all of us together, collectively, can shift human consciousness, can shift the collective, and can make it to that promised land, that higher realm of union and oneness, together as one. And then we can say, as Martin Luther King did, mine eyes have seen the glory of life lived from those higher realms. Let's shut our eyes right now and take that into prayer. And feel that lifting as we breathe it out. Breathe out any of the dualistic split mind thinking. Whatever concern you brought in with you today, just let it go. It's holding you down. Let go and trust. Spirit moving through you, lifting you higher and higher. No matter what the appearance is, we give no power to the appearances. We simply allow the upliftment with grace, fullness of grace, and we choose not to frustrate that grace. We surrender, we go with the flow, and we allow the unfolding. We say, thank you, Father, Mother God, in the nature of the Christ, and so it is, so it truly is. Amen.